tonight. The RCMP is ramping up mandatory alcohol screening, but one organization says that goes against charter rights.
Just gonna miss my friend. Just gonna miss being able to talk to him.
An emotional day as Riders staff remember former President Jim Hopson. And a swift current woman pirouettes her way into the Canadian ballet record books.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, April 4th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams in for Sam McKeag. Thanks for joining us tonight. RCMP in the province have started mandatory alcohol screening when pulling drivers over. But one civil liberties organization takes issue with the screenings, saying it's a violation of people's rights. Liam O'Connor has that story.
If you have a burnt-out headlight or get caught speeding, be ready to take a breathalyzer test.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Since 2018, mandatory alcohol screenings have been a part of the criminal code. But now, it seems more and more law enforcement agencies have started doing breathalyzers regularly during traffic stops. Regina Police Service did mandatory checks for the month of March. And now, the RCMP says it will be checking for impaired drivers on all traffic stops.
For us in Saskatchewan, and my role is overseeing traffic services and CTSS program, is that if we were doing the same as what Alberta was doing and get some sort of similar results to that, that what we would end up doing is making roads much safer for the traveling public.
Drivers will not be forced to take a breathalyzer or get blood tests. But if people refuse to blow, they will be charged with refusal and they will have to go to court.
Realistically, investigating impaired driving takes a lot of resources from the police and demands a lot of resources in the court process. And our system just isn't equipped to have police officers spend the amount of time they need to spend conducting these investigations, and then to have the courts spend the amount of time that needs to be spent prosecuting each person who's caught.
The Canadian Civil Liberties Organization says these changes to the criminal code infringe on charter rights. Specifically Section 8, which ensures a person is not subject to unreasonable search and seizure, and may not make a dent in impaired driving anyways.
We did a comprehensive examination of other jurisdictions that have also made this transition. And what we found is that you could not draw the direct conclusion that introducing mandatory breath samples for every stop motorist definitively leads to a reduction in impaired driving.
The RCMP say its officers will use discretion, but they are supposed to check everyone they pull over. The Saskatoon Police Service says it's looking to expand its mandatory alcohol screening as well, but it says there's not a timeline on when that will roll out yet. Liam O'Connor, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The latest drug toxicity report from the Saskatchewan Coroners Service has been released, and it shows there have been more than 100 confirmed and suspected drug overdose deaths already this year. Laura Sharpaletti has more.
Earlier this week, Prairie Harm Reduction in Saskatoon announced that its supervised consumption site and drop-in center is cutting its hours in May. The organization says it needs more money from the government to be able to keep up with the increased demand. Today, the Saskatchewan Coroners Service confirmed that 26 people have died of drug toxicity between January and March of this year. Another 87 deaths are suspected. In comparison, 484 people died last year of suspected or confirmed drug toxicity.
I'm concerned that it's just simply going to escalate due to the toxicity of the supply that we have now with fentanyl.
Addiction ministers from Alberta, Ontario, and Saskatchewan also announced an agreement today that would see them working together to build systems of care that focus on recovery. Saskatchewan's minister did not respond to people's concerns about Prairie Harm Reduction's reduced hours, but he did say that the Saskatchewan government has a multi-pronged approach to recovery and treatment.
Those individuals may not yet be prepared or ready to walk the path to recovery, and that's why we've continued to invest in our take-home naloxone program, where 40,000 individuals have been trained to administer naloxone at over 400 locations across the province. Those kits are available, and we've successfully reversed 10,000 overdoses.
Dr. Peter Butt of Saskatoon says all stakeholders need to focus on building a continuum of support from prevention all the way to recovery.
polarization and battling between our harm reduction versus recovery is not helpful. We need to recognize where they fit in, how they're best related and best situated in terms of extending services to people so we can help them along in this journey.
The minister says this new provincial partnership for recovery will help. He says the Saskatchewan government is doubling its capacity to make addictions treatment and recovery more accessible for people. Laura Sharpaletti, CBC News, Regina.
The CEO of the Saskatchewan Roughriders was emotional today as he remembered his friend and mentor, Jim Hopson. The 73-year-old former Riders president and CEO died this week after a 3-year battle with cancer. Craig Reynolds described Hopson as an inspiration to him and many others. Hopson served as the organization's first full-time president and CEO from 2005 to 2015. During his tenure, the Green and White made it to the Grey Cup 4 times, winning twice, including at home in Regina. Reynolds says Hopson was a ray of positive energy and helped shape the Saskatchewan Roughriders into the organization it is today.
He just sort of said, well, why can't it be us? Like, why aren't we the flagship franchise? Why can't we be the flagship franchise? Why can't we lead the league in every category? Just going to miss my friend. Just going to miss being able to talk to him and know I can reach out to him. Yeah, just going to miss that he was always there.
The Roughriders are displaying a tribute to Hopson at Mosaic Stadium, a field that Reynolds believes would not have been built without Hopson's efforts. In lieu of flowers, Hopson's family has asked that donations be directed to the Saskatchewan Roughrider Foundation, Saskatchewan Cancer Foundation, and Regina Minor Football. The latest report from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says housing starts are expected to decline this year. That's due to the delayed effect of higher interest rates on new construction. The CMHC says new builds will start picking up again in 2025 and 2026 and could hit peak levels and set new highs. Home prices and sales will also rise, driven by high demand. Rental housing will remain in short supply, leading to higher rent costs and lower vacancy rates in coming years. Well, schools across Canada are dealing with severe teacher shortages, leaving principals to make some tough choices about how the learning day will unfold for students, and that risks leaving some behind. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson takes a closer look behind the problem.
Start formulating a plan. And,
this former principal knows the scramble when a lot of teachers call in sick.
Do I combine classes? Do I cancel music for the day? Will I have to teach a class? Will I have to cancel prep time for teachers?
And the kids feel the effect of it.
When those trusting relationships are negatively impacted, we tend to see some very, concerning things. We see changes in behavior.
The Ontario-based advocacy group People for Education surveyed more than 1,000 principals in the province who painted a grim picture of just how bad the situation is. 24% of elementary and 35% of secondary schools report facing daily shortages in teaching staff. And it's not just in Ontario.
We are having evidence surfacing from across the country.
This education professor says while there were shortages before the pandemic, COVID-19 made the situation worse.
So if there was this group who were close to retirement who sought early retirement, so that reduced the number of available teachers in schools. Equally, teachers who had recently retired, who in a typical situation would return to supply or substitute teach once or twice or 3 times a week, they were not returning into schools during COVID because they didn't want to put themselves at risk.
And we had our meeting with MFA schools yesterday.
Just this February, Newfoundland and Labrador brought together both the teachers and government officials to tackle the problem.
We do have some housing units available in some of our communities for our teachers, and in others we do a housing stipend, which gives them a portion towards their rent.
But even there, the teacher union said in a statement the government's efforts fell short, underfunding key problem areas like packed classrooms and violence in schools. As teacher shortages proves to be an equation few know how to solve. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
If you've been noticing more cockroaches around lately, you're not alone. A pest control company says it's seen a huge increase in calls for the critters, as evidenced by a recent situation at the Cornwall Centre in Regina. Earlier this week, Edo, Japan in the mall was closed. This after a woman filmed a cockroach crawling along the countertop when she was getting food there. The mall says it was an isolated incident, but the Saskatchewan Health Inspection website lists pest issues with Edo and 2 other restaurants in the mall.
Cockroaches are on a major increase. I just want to give some numbers first. 2018, my offices across Western Canada did 3,923 cockroach jobs. Last year, 2023, was 7,146 jobs. So a significant increase in cockroach calls that we're getting.
Poulin says food courts are harder to treat when it comes to pests because all restaurants should be treated, not just a few. As for Edo, there is no word on when it will reopen. Saskatchewan's Water Security Agency says the province's water supply is looking good this summer, despite a drier than usual winter. We're told 3/4 of Saskatchewan's 45 reservoirs are at or near usual levels, including Lake Diefenbaker, which is now 1.5 meters higher than last year. The Water Security Agency says while some reservoirs are still low in southwestern Saskatchewan, there's no need to worry.
Most of the reservoirs in the province this year are filling or going to fill here, going into sort of spring runoff and kind of as temperatures start to change and water really starts moving. We're in a fairly good shape across the province.
Despite having enough water to go around, Boyle says some days with heavy rain or snow would still be more than welcome. And some rain is what Saskatoon and others in our province did end up seeing today. That made for a dreary spring day in the Bridge City. Meanwhile, other parts of our province are dealing with snow. It is still the beginning of April, after all. So how long is the snow and rain going to stick around? Riley Lachuk has the answers in his forecast after the break. Welcome back. Environment and Climate Change Canada issued a snowfall warning today for much of southwestern Alberta. Between 15 and 30 centimeters of snow is expected. And in Calgary, city crews kicked into high gear. Dave Gilson has the story.
Some Calgarians shoveling out this morning were taking this latest bout of winter-like weather in stride.
Yeah, this is basically just expected for Calgarians, I think. It's not a big deal.
The city's manager for mobility maintenance, Chris Hewitt, says road crews are busy and focusing on trouble spots and priority routes. They're asking drivers to use caution. With temperatures hovering around freezing, he says it can mean varied and changing road conditions across the city.
So a couple degrees in either direction and we could be dealing with a very different event. You know, if we get warmer, we're looking at rain and the possibility of freezing on maybe bridge decks or overnight when it cools off. Couple degrees colder, we could have that really big, heavy, fluffy snow, and then we're plowing snow. And so we have to really monitor, and it can be different in different parts of the city. So we'll be keeping our eye on what's happening everywhere and sort of reacting accordingly.
Forecasters were expecting more snowfall along the foothills. Mark Pasternak with the Alberta Motor Association says people need to be cautious and patient on highways as well.
The simplest way of looking at any condition, any driving situation when it comes to environmental stuff is patience. Patience is everything. Calm, slow, take your time, don't rush, don't push. That's the whole idea. Be aware of other drivers around you in the same scenario.
The snow from this system is expected to taper off Friday morning. Dave Gilson, CBC News, Calgary.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. Customer Appreciation Month is on now.
Well, the snow from that system in Alberta did move a bit into Saskatchewan today, and in Saskatoon, that was falling in the form of rain. And as you can see out our tower cam there in Saskatoon, is still cloudy and dreary at the moment. Our weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now. And Riley, while it was cloudy and cool in some parts of the province, very warm these last couple of days elsewhere.
Yeah, almost like the tale of two towns. Doesn't have to go too far apart to see some very different weather conditions, Ethan. Yes, quick step back to yesterday with some of the numbers from the record warmth that we saw. Moose Jaw, 22.7, about 0.6 degrees above the record from 1992, and Maple Creek, a tenth of a degree above that old record from 1930. So yes, some very warm temperatures yesterday and some very warm temperatures again today. Just look at the contrast on this map here. So Assiniboia, Coronach, the extreme southern part of Saskatchewan getting into the 20s, 15 the high this afternoon in Regina, but Kindersley and Leader just barely getting over 2 and 3 degrees. So like I said, you don't have to go very far to find some very different weather in the province, and still contending even with a little bit of snow through parts of central Saskatchewan as we get into the supper hour here. So mainly cloudy skies through the south, but yes, Saskatoon seeing the tail end of some of that rain and even some snow up into the Prince Albert region. Even as far west at times, some light snow into the North Battleford area. So yes, not quite done with the precipitation yet. Nothing of, say, the shoveling variety quite, aside from a dusting maybe in the southern part of the province, but could see a bit more snow as we get into the overnight period tonight. So as we advance into your Friday, yes, we do see a chance of some scattered showers early in the morning through Regina, even as far north as Saskatoon, but a little bit more of an organized system through, say, Kindersley up into North Battleford, Lloydminster. So, and yes, a lot of this will also depend on temperatures. Plus or minus that freezing mark could see the difference between snow and rain. More of a rain event through Saskatoon up into Prince Albert, La Ronge as we get through the later part of Friday into Saturday. Still a few lingering showers depicted on Futurecast, at least as we get through the early part of Saturday. I think fairly scattered in nature as we get through into the midday, but certainly the possibility still there as we head into the day Saturday into Sunday. In terms of rainfall accumulation to come, really not too much aside from maybe a few millimeters here and there through Regina and Saskatoon. Most of that to the south, or to the west and to the north, I should say, through areas like La Ronge, South End, getting about 7 millimeters up to the point of Saturday. And yes, some of this could fall as snow. But the story tomorrow through at least the southern sections, definitely the wind. So if we start the day on Friday here, winds 40 gusting 60 through Regina. Saskatoon, Prince Albert seeing some gusts of 40, but that southeastern corner of the province could see some stronger gusts as we get through the day on Friday. So chance of a morning shower tomorrow in Regina. Otherwise, double digits right through the weekend into next week. 14 for Wednesday, 13 for Thursday. Saskatoon, yes, some scattered showers through tomorrow, and we're looking at double digits, Ethan, right into the middle part of next week, and sunshine.
Looks great. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, CCTV footage from Taiwan shows people inside a maternity center trying to protect newborn babies during Wednesday's earthquake. The supervisor says it was scary, but everyone's natural instinct kicked in. The quake mainly hit a sparsely populated area in East Taiwan. It's the strongest quake in 25 years to hit the country. We're back after the break. Three federal New Democrat MPs announced today they will not run in the next election. Most notable was party veteran and former NDP leadership candidate Charlie Angus. The Northern Ontario MP was first elected in 2004. Writing on social media, he said it was time to pass the baton. Carol Hughes also represents a Northern Ontario riding. Because of redistribution, it won't exist next election. The third MP not running is Rachel Blaney. She represents the BC riding of North Island Powell River. Well, Monday's solar eclipse is creating anticipation in the human world, but for animals, it will come out of the blue. The CBC's Laura Meader looks at how they could be affected.
It's a normal day out here now, but on Monday at eclipse time, it will be much different out here. Christina Hare doesn't expect her dog to notice, but they won't be out here walking during it.
I'm not really concerned because she does sleep really well during the night, so I don't think it'll throw her off too much. She might have a nap, and I'll make sure to maybe not take her outside during that time.
Specialists in animal behavior say an eclipse can cause pets or farm animals to act differently, especially if they're already nervous.
This could set them off just a little bit.
The big response that is reported is one of nonspecific fear or anxiety, simply because this is so uncertain.
Dr. Karen Overall says animals often act as they would at nighttime, but they might also think it's a storm, which could be stressful. For larger animals, having some kind of shelter or a barn can help. Trainers at this Charlottetown track plan to keep their horses in the barn, which is also a darker environment.
I don't really know if it would harm them or not, but to be on the safe side, I just keep them in the barn and just when it kind of passes in, then kind of go about your everyday thing pretty well.
Miles Heffernan says it makes sense to protect human and animal eyes, and vets agree.
There are people who will have goggles for their dog.
This veterinarian says it is harder to control larger animals, but pets should be kept inside if they're at risk of looking at the sun.
Some animals are far more sensitive to different types of light than we are. So, you'd want to be a little careful there.
In the past, researchers have reported birds gathering on the ground and looking at the eclipse, and some primate animals in zoos have pointed at it, and cows have thought it's milking time. Experts say it's good to plan ahead to keep animals safe. Laura Meter, CBC News, Charlottetown.
And Riley's back to tell us if we'll see the sun at all tomorrow.
Yes, thanks, Ethan. Maybe some scattered showers first thing. I want to quickly take a look at the solar eclipse since that's happening on Monday, of course. Don't look at it without proper eye protection. Regina getting about a 40% eclipse. Saskatoon about a third of the moon or sun covered by the moon. So that's something to look forward to if we have sunny skies on Monday. As for tomorrow, some scattered showers first thing, 3 degrees in Regina, up to 15 by the time we reach the afternoon. Gusty winds up to 60 kilometers an hour. Southeast winds to 40 through Saskatoon. We're looking at 8 degrees by the time we hit noon. And Ethan, a partly cloudy afternoon tomorrow. And we're looking at 13 tomorrow in Regina.
Now, we'll be keeping our eyes to the skies, especially
Yes,
Monday. Thanks so much,
absolutely.
Riley.
You're welcome.
And finally tonight, a Saskatchewan ballet dancer has earned one of the highest honors in the dance world. Brianna Dash is a Swift Current dancer and teacher, and she's the first person in Canada to complete the Advanced Solo Award Ballet exam.
When I first found out about the exam, I had no idea that nobody had taken it before. But then when I started working on it more, I found out nobody had, so I thought it was a huge opportunity for me, and I really pushed myself, and it was a great honor. I got to work with Melissa Wallace, my dance teacher, and we got to choreograph around 3 to 4 exercises, like a choreographed entrance, a port de bras and a dodge, and a coda, which is fancy turns. And then I also got to perform a variation from the Sleeping Beauty, as well as a Spanish variation. Overall, it was just actually a great achievement to have. Now I am working on furthering my teaching credentials and hoping that I can inspire younger dancers to work towards this exam. I remember showing them pictures from the day of, and they just kept having me go back and look through them all with them and explain everything behind it. They were very excited for me.
And a big congrats to Brianna on that accomplishment. That is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Sask, subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel, or download the CBC News app. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.